Hello, guys. I'm Jake.
And I'm Amelie, and we are Horror Academy. Now, today we're going to talk about a supposedly true scary story.
So, this story is not made for kids nor people who get scared easily. It's a pretty scary story, if I do say so. And these are all based off of real people's encounters. So,
It's going to be a little gruesome, and
yeah,
viewer discretion is advised.
yeah, a little gruesome. So let's start off just talking about the podcast. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, our podcast is kind of going to be a mixture of real life scary things
along with murder
and
mysteries. Wink, wink.
wink wink.
Possibly the next podcast. I don't know. It might
Mystery
be. It might
murder.
not be. It might be
May
someone who
just
hasn't
be.
got caught yet. All right.
May still be alive.
He might still be alive. He might be dead. No one knows. He might not even
Maybe a
be a
she.
he. All right. Now we're talking about the other. Hi guys, Horror Academy again. We're talking about the murder mysteries. No. Okay, that's not this episode. That's
This
actually
episode is about the Bell Witch, or as most people know it, Blair Witch.
it's actually the beginning, the thing that the Blair Witch Project and An American Haunting is based off of. So, it's sponsored, not sponsored, but tried to, push two really amazing movies.
They are both good, and you should watch both of them because they're both worth watching.
I
That's
mean,
for sure.
personally, I really like the Blair Witch Project,
I
especially the 2019 remake.
Yes, that is great.
Which, speaking of which, we'll also be doing stuff about horror movies. Just some fun stuff and fun games every now and then. Uh, we'll be trying to release a podcast every week. So, yeah, look out for those. Um,
Boop, boop.
so you want to start us off with the time it takes place and stuff?
Okay, so the Bell Witch takes place in the 19th century.
Um,
The Bell family was the center of a more of a vast majority of attacks and like invasions in its local area.
so these are all based off of true accounts of people, and the
Supposedly.
supposedly the Bell family actually said that the Bell Witch was an invisible entity that could speak, shapeshift, and has the ability of going superhuman speeds or being in two places at once. And that is terrifying.
I would probably scream if that happened. Like, no. Bell
um,
Witch was also claimed to be the witch of Eight Bet, who was formerly a mean old neighbor who believed she was cheated by
the Bell
him
family.
in a
The Bell
land
family.
purchase. Yeah.
We're just looking
Well,
at our notes right here. Our first podcast, gonna have some mistakes.
obviously. Still getting
um,
used to it, the
yeah.
recording and stuff.
Um, some of these stories date back all the way to 1817. So over 200 years ago, actually 203 years ago.
That is
And
so long.
that is a long time ago. Dang. Um, and actually something cool I found while researching is former President Andrew Jackson was quoted with saying, "I had rather face the entire British army than to spend another night with the Bell Witch," after he and some of his troops spent a night at the Bell's farm.
Yeah, that.
A
That's
family,
kind of scary to think about because, like,
a former
that's
president.
a president.
Exactly. Um, well, we have a ton of stuff right here. So it's going to be
Oh,
a
this
long
is,
first podcast.
yeah, you have 4 pages of notes.
Yeah. Um, so where else? Where should we go? Just trying to get the
Okay,
backstory done.
yes. So, you want me to read the actual story?
Sure. Yeah, the little clip clip
little clip bit.
that we got from their website.
So, way back in the early 1800s, a man named John Bell moved his family to an area in Tennessee called Red River, which is now known as Adams, Tennessee. After they had settled into this new home, some peculiar things started happening. The Bell family began hearing some bizarre noises, including dogs barking, chains rattling, rats chewing, and women whispering. Soon that woman became known as the Bell Witch, and many people believe that she is a ghost of the former neighbor of Bell's, Kate Bats. Bats and the Bells had a dispute over land and the pricing, and she had sworn vengeance on the Bell family before she died. Later on, Bell died from poisoning, and it was rumored to be the work of the Bell Witch.
Yep. So this was 203 years ago, like we said,
That's
and
a long time.
like there's literal news reports of people who tried to stay the night but couldn't even stay the entire night.
Like,
So,
president?
like
That's,
that's how you know it could be legit. A president, a former
yeah,
president, even though back then it was kind of wacky. So, you
yeah.
know. But one of our first incidents that actually happened to the Bell family was back in the early 1800s. Young Betsy Bell and some of her friends had gone to explore the Bell Cave or the Bell Witch Cave. While they were, sorry, jeez. While they were there, one of the boys crawled into a hole and became stuck. A voice cried out, "I'll get him." The boy felt a grasping on his feet, and then he was pulled out of the hole. So,
It's a little scary.
a random person yelled, "I'll get him out," and then he was yanked out of the hole. So,
That's a little weird.
after that, obviously, as many people would, the group of friends ran out of the house, not house, the cave, and just went back to the
Yeah.
cavern. Cavern.
So the cave is not the most haunted part of this place, and neither is the cabin.
Yeah, the cave's
So we're just
actually
gonna
the
give a little
second most haunted part.
yes, and the cabin is one of the least. So we're gonna talk about the cabin. First of all, they have an exact replica of that cabin today, and it you can stay at it for the night. It is $8 per person each night, and it is located in Roberts County, Tennessee.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. They actually let you stay in the remake of the cabin.
Yeah, and it
Lets
has
you
all the
see,
paperwork, and it has pictures that like were saved.
that'd be
So it
pretty
has a bunch of
creepy.
history.
That'd be pretty creepy just sleeping in that cabin and you're just looking over and you see pictures of dead people on the wall.
Or as
I
you hear later in the story, a rabbit.
Oh my gosh, that's a funny story. Funny little mini part of the
Oh,
story.
yeah.
So there was a few hauntings in the cabin, so I'll cover that right now. In the cabin, strange things started to happen soon after they moved in. Blankets were pulled from beds, family members were scratched and kicked, and had their hair pulled. So this thing is a poltergeist. Elizabeth Bell, the daughter of John Bell, received the worst of the abuse and was slapped and pinched until her body was covered in bruises.
That's horrible. Imagine
Hey,
just waking up and your entire body is completely covered in bruises.
like,
I'll wake up with a
that's
few
scary.
bruises in the morning, not knowing how I got them. But imagine your entire body.
Oh my god, that would be terrifying.
That's a little scary.
Like, this is scarier for us because we're recording at 11 p.m. Almost midnight.
Wow.
Um,
Good
so,
night.
let me. Her
Yeah.
body
So
was covered in bruises. John Bell decided at first to keep the strange events quiet because he didn't want people to think him crazy. And then
yeah,
he
he didn't want to be sent to a mental hospital. Had those.
yeah,
Also,
back then people
he
did not take
didn't.
that stuff seriously at
Yeah.
all.
Also, he didn't want to be burnt alive. I mean, he was crazy.
Yeah.
Who did that
Um
kind of?
he finally talked a friend. Wow, confided in a friend, and a committee was formed to investigate the strange happenings. So basically, a old paranormal investigation crew.
Yeah, and so the spirit, like during that whole communication thing happened, the spirit said that it was Kate Batts, the neighbor, and she was like, she was there because of the business problems and the money, and she just wanted her revenge.
Yeah.
And so now the ghost is known as Kate or the Bell Witch.
Okay, so 1868, around 50-ish years after all this first started, this is a murder trial of the Clennard and Burgess. It's a Clennard Burgess trial, 1868. Jeez. Um, I have some of the original, not original, but a paragraph of stuff I want to read that specific. So, in September 1868, an article was published entitled Witchcraft and Murder, Hobgoblins and Old Gray Horses, the Incentive to Crime. Tom Clennard and Dick Burgess were arrested for the murder of Mr. Smith. The article reported that Smith claimed the powers of witchcraft while working near Adams Station, chopping wood on a farm with the defendants. The article stated that Smith claimed to use these occult powers on Clennard and Burgess, leading to the conflict between them. The identity of the dissent was reported variously as James and Charles Smith. The jury of state versus Clennard and Burgess returned a not guilty verdict. So it was found out that I'm pretty sure they used, murder of a man for witchcraft as evidence.
Yeah, which I don't really think is evidence.
And Rawls testified that the Bell Witch was a frequent topic of conversation during her lifetime and pointed to a murder of a man for witchcraft as evidence for this claim. So,
What kind of suck living your entire life like the Bell Witch?
it
Like you would
really
grow
would.
up with that. You were a child, grew up with that.
And I'm pretty sure, it was a non guilty verdict. So, those two were actually, they weren't convicted because that's what people believed in. They believed in witchcraft back then, and they believed
Yeah.
it was totally possible.
A lot of people still do believe in witchcraft.
Yeah,
That it
true.
is possible.
Um, you
Still
want
a
to read
very
this next part about the haunted house in Springfield, Tennessee?
Ooh, yes. Okay.
This is where the story
So
starts getting interesting.
this is fun. Okay. So on April 24th, 1880, so a few, decades after that, an article was published regarding the haunted house in Springfield, Tennessee, where knocking underneath the floorboards were heard.
Which, keep in
On
mind,
Wednesday night,
people are still hearing this knocking today.
it's kind of freaky.
Like, they've heard this knocking for the last 200 years. Well, 150-ish years.
I feel bad for the spirit.
I mean,
You know? Just knocking for people's attention, like, I'm under here. Okay. So on a Wednesday night, the 28th year, the family reported to have left the home for a night, and a smaller group of investigators around the home heard knocking from 50 yards away.
50 yards, dang.
That's quite a, away. So during the events, the journalist that was there took the opportunity to mention the Bell Witch legend.
Which,
And it's actual fact.
go ahead, keep reading.
Okay. It's an actual fact that several hundred intelligent people and other places have been excited over the noises that go on night after night. They just listen to it.
the Bell Witch
Like,
legend was actually and is actually not confirmed a legend, but they consider it a legend because no one has hard evidence that she exists. And there was many people talking about it, just speaking about it when they're around there, and then they hear the knocking and they're like, "Oh dang, haha, yeah, I'm out of here."
thank
I,
you.
I would not stay there.
Neither would
Yeah.
I. Probably get. Mm, probably not.
Um. So now we're jumping
Like
forward a few years.
1935.
Yeah. So people said the witch was set to return again in 1935, 170 years after her last visit to the Bell family. And 1937 reports of crazy events. Um, and there is a new owner of the farm, Louis Garrison. He
That
included
also
the
included the cave.
yeah, He owned the farm and included the Bell Witch Cave. He kept hearing unexplained noises coming from inside, and just like weird sounds of rubbing against the house, a paper-like object that flew out of the door and re-entered through a side door, and faint music heard from a piano. So they're hearing all this strange stuff.
I would hate to have lived here.
Especially back then, like you don't have a phone to talk to people about it. You
No
don't
one
have
would believe you.
exactly like
You put into a mental asylum
like the
or burned.
technology
Like,
is ages behind what we have now, and it's just like no one would believe you. You would basically be left crazy. Um. So yeah, they just kept hearing all these strange noises. So, a group from the local Epworth League were reported to have attended a wiener roast or hot dog roast in a rock quarry near the Bell Witch Cave on July 29th, 1937. So, the same year that they started hearing all those unexplained noises.
yeah.
They started joking about the legend when. So, you know how you're not supposed to talk ill about the dead? They
They
started
kind of
doing
did
that.
that.
They started doing that. And then they saw a figure of a woman sitting on top of the cliff over the cave, causing over half of them to flee this area. So, they literally the saying, they literally used that saying and saw something.
Like,
So,
don't
so
disrespect the dead, people.
like
Graveyard etiquette.
speak ill of the dead, you'll see the woman sitting on the top of the cliff. um
I would not want to see a woman sitting on top of a cliff that I do not know during a wiener roast.
One second. I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so I did not mention it in the notes yet. Yeah, I
So it
did.
made many of them leave because they were just so scared.
Yeah, and it was actually a priest had gone to investigate and he didn't find anyone there. So, and then people said the moon was bright or something like that, and it was just a
It was just like,
shadow or
it,
something of a
uh,
rock.
you know, mess with the brain,
Yeah,
the
and then
thing.
further people in the not future but later on people were saying the moon actually wasn't that visible that night. It was a very dark night, and that's why they had the fire going and everything.
Yeah.
um
And then we jump to almost 30 years later in November of 1965, where an
yeah.
article was published involving an antique oak rocking chair. It was said to have been previously owned by Charlie Williott. And the rocking chair was acquired in Williott's estate by Mrs. J.C. Adams. A customer sat down in the chair after learning it was not for sale anymore, and while rocking in the chair, she asked Mrs. Adams if she believed in the supernatural. 2 weeks later, the customer's daughter visited the home of Miss Adams and said after her mother had left and visited the Bell Cemetery, A voice told her to stand up and look around you. You will find something of much value. After some car trouble that she had, the woman walked out into the field and found a black iron kettle turned over. She turned the kettle over and found a pearl bucket in the grass. The woman's daughter reported a jeweler estimated the like the daughter went to a jeweler and the jeweler estimated that the buckle would be up to 160 to 200 years old.
Dang.
And they think that it's probably of the old family owner,
Dang.
the old house owner.
Um, I actually skipped over some information about the Andrew Jackson, how he said he had stayed there. Um, there is skepticism about that part. Paranormal investigator Benjamin Redford, as well as Brian Dunning, conclude that there is no solid evidence that Andrew Jackson actually visited the Bell family home. During the years of question Andrew Jackson's movements were well documented. He wrote down everywhere he went. He was general, so obviously he would have to. And nowhere in history or any of his writings is there evidence of his knowledge of the Bell family. According to
It's all kind of just like who someone against someone else's words.
yeah, basically.
There's no evidence that he didn't go, but there's no evidence he went.
The 1824 presidential election was notoriously malicious because they started backstabbing each other, digging up dirt from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years in the past, trying to get anything to get the other in trouble or ruin their
Things that
chances of
still
being
happen.
president, which that is still happening.
Like,
um,
gosh, my aunt had the most funny idea. She was like, I'm going to run for president. And I'm going to say every single bad thing that I've done in my entire life first. And no one has dirt on me. It's all in the past. So,
True. Um,
exactly. She'll say what she wants.
and the 1824 the presidential election, it was probably one of the most malicious presidential elections that there ever was. And people find it hard to believe that his opponent would have overlooked the opportunity to drag him through the mud for having lost a fight to a witch. A witch. Which I'm not speaking ill of dead. Don't haunt me.
No, of course not. But just imagine being in a presidential campaign and someone's like, you got scared by a witch.
Oh my god.
You probably would have two of you were there.
Oh my god. I wouldn't even. I can't even imagine. So
Yeah.
that part can either be true or false. No one really knows. No one will ever know
I don't think you
because
can really ask anymore.
Andrew Jackson's dead.
Just a
So
little bit.
just like 150, no, 200 years dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
um. Wow. I just lost everything on my screen.
Did.
So, Bonnie Heinlein in 1977 recounted a time during her childhood in 1944 when she was exploring the cave. So people would come from the legend they heard about the Bell Witch, come to the cave, explore it all the time. A lot of them, you know, what's it called, will have just weird paranormal events happen to them. Nothing really, really, really weird, but
Yeah.
some
Like,
some weird
the
stuff.
average
Yeah, some.
abandoned building kind of thing.
Yeah. So she had left English class playing hooky and borrowed a lantern from her teacher. The Actually, she borrowed a lantern from the cave owner, not her teacher. She explored the cave with her friends for several years. While she was inside, her lantern blew out, despite no breeze, no wind, nothing inside the cave, and she's deep inside this cave. Nothing. Like, no gusts or anything. And then she managed to relight the lantern, and blew out again. She's now terrified at this point. So she crawled along the water little path that there is in the cave in the dark until she reached the entrance where she what's it called where she enter from, where you enter the building from, and she found an
Cave.
opened can of pork and beans and marshmallows.
It's like someone's been living down there.
Yeah. And later that day, she had read that law enforcement discovered two escaped fugitives in the back of the cave. She credited the
Oh,
witch with helping her avoid them. So
wow.
there's said it's said to have the witch do negative things, harming people, almost killing them,
It saved her.
and saving people. Like there's multiple events that are still talked about today.
How can their demeanor just change? Like, I'm gonna kill you.
Oh
To
my
I'm
god,
gonna save
I
your
know,
life.
I know. Um, like literally back in the 1800s, the Bell Witch was supposedly leaving bruises and scratches on people.
It may just be that family. Remember, they were seeking revenge.
Yeah, but
Family. The
young Betsy Bell, remember, her friend had fallen in a hole, and the witch helped him out supposedly.
true.
Now we're not saying anything like this is factual because there's no hard
Oh,
evidence.
supposedly,
It's all
it says
supposedly,
she says the thing.
like we said in the intro, that we need to
Yeah.
work on.
Yes, 100%.
Like we're recording another episode tomorrow sometime for the next week, so we'll work on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
um, so you wanna talk about this next part about the soldiers?
In 1977?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so in 1977, there was a there was a report of five soldiers from a nearby Fort Campbell, in the Bell Witch Cave. One of the soldiers was sitting on a rock outside the cave and expressed that he wasn't so believable. Like, he didn't think that the Bell Witch legend, was believable, and he thought it's so fake. And something grabbed him around the chest, and no one saw anything.
yeah. Something
And like, that was
invisible
just so
grabbed
weird.
him,
Yeah,
just all of a sudden, and
out of nowhere, because he was talking bad about that spirit.
which
And that spirit's like, mm-mm, not today.
which we also saw something similar like that during the hot dog roast, where they were speaking skepticism about the witch, and then they saw someone on the cliff.
Yeah,
So apparently, this witch does not like people
who
bad
don't
mouthing her.
believe.
We also saw that. Pretty sure it was way back in the 1800s. I forget what it was. Yeah, I forget what it was. Now I'm trying to find it.
Delete it.
I,
Delete it.
I don't remember which one it was, but oh, Elizabeth Bell. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When she at first didn't believe in the Bell Witch, yeah, and then she had all that stuff happen to her. Yeah, everyone loves that. So, we have a long portion right here, and it's actually not too long ago. It's about 35, 40 years ago.
1986.
Yeah, and, you know, um, it is a reporter, so you never know how credible they can be.
Yeah, those aren't a very reliable source. They will say
At least
we'll get them attention.
back then it was more reliable.
So now we have Fox News and CNN
Yeah.
on news.
Yeah. In 1986, staff writer David Jarrett for the Tennessean and photographer Bill Wilson The latter also a member of the National Speleological Society. Jeez, were given permission to sleep in the cave. Now, they normally don't give that permission to people. They don't give permission to people because of how dangerous it could be, both from natural things to paranormal things. Um, so they were given permission to sleep overnight in the cave. And in the first cave room, they heard a noise from deeper in the cave. Jared estimated 30-ish yards. They somehow heard an unwavering groan, repeated again with even that was even louder, and it
Ooh.
was accompanied by several loud thumps. So basically, like 7 Tyrannosaurus footsteps.
No, thank you.
Yeah, nope. I'm
Would
getting
not
out
like
of
to be
there.
sleeping in a cave where I hear Tyrannosaurus footsteps.
Like I wouldn't sleep in a cave in the first place,
No. First of
just
all, where would you
because
sleep?
sleeping bag, duh.
Uh,
Um,
on a
so
rock.
they went back to the the cave entrance where there's this gate. They followed the wiring to the lights, looking for a logical reason for the unexplained noises. They went back to the first cave room, but then, as soon as they got there, they heard a rumble near the entrance. Walking back to the entrance, they discovered the rumble was noise from a jet. As they reached the gate, a loud, high-pitched scream emitted from inside the cave. I mean,
No.
this
No, thank
next
you.
no, this next part is probably obvious. They left and did not spend the night. You don't
That's
say.
right.
I no. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I also heard a scream, like
Like, hmm.
scream,
Hmm.
a high pitched scream from
Yeah.
inside the cave.
Mm-hmm. And
No.
they were given permission to sleep in the cave only because there would be no one else in the cave.
Yeah,
There would be absolutely nobody else in the cave.
because the witch did not appreciate them sleeping in the cave.
Apparently not. Apparently that's her cave.
Witch likes peace and quiet and space, personal space.
Yeah, which the reason the cave is the second most haunted part is because the forested area surrounding the Bell farm and the cave is the most haunted part. There were stories and just reports about unexplained trees falling, people who were walking through there and seeing random lady like
People.
teleporting and going supernatural speeds and shape shifting the ground, as we mentioned earlier. Um, so like
Yeah, like in 1987, C. Sanders, the owner of a nearby gas station, reported 20 years earlier that he ran
20
out
years.
of a gas station near the Red River across from the Bell Witch Cave. He began to walk towards the town when a rabbit, yes, you heard me right, a rabbit,
This is my favorite
came
story.
out of the woods and began to follow him. He started walking faster, but the rabbit kept its pace. Even as he broke out into a run, the rabbit ran. After a mile, Sanders sat down on a log to catch his breath. The rabbit hopped up on the other side of the log, looked at him, and said, "Hell of a race we have there, wasn't it?"
Oh my god. I guess this further supports the belief that the Bell Witch can shapeshift. Oh.
Only likes to shapeshift into rabbits
And race people.
and race people.
Oh my god.
I mean, the witch has to get fit somehow too.
Oh wow. Um, this is my favorite story just because of how funny it is. It's just like
Like,
you would not
just
expect
imagine.
this.
Just think, you would have to be really high.
Like if he was under the influence, yeah,
It makes sense.
especially to run a mile.
With A rabbit.
Just rabbit chasing you.
Rabbits are speedy.
I mean, they are pretty fast.
They're really fast.
I saw one zoom across my backyard the other day, and I'm like, dang, that's pretty
Zoom.
fast.
Gosh, there are so many rabbits back.
All right. It has also been said that the Bell Witch has killed people before, and then people who were suspected to be the murderer were charged, but the charges were dropped multiple times due to it being believable because of how many reported cases there were of the Bell Witch and lack of evidence they had up against it.
Yeah, and like they didn't have stuff to prove those people were the murderers, and
Exactly.
people saying, "No, it's the witch, it's the witch."
Which was said a
Seriously,
lot. And that's what was
yeah.
said in the trial we talked about earlier, about 20 minutes ago.
Just imagining
The Clinard and
someone
Burgess.
actually murdering someone during that,
And then blaming
and
it on the
then
witch.
blaming it on the witch.
Yeah, that would be.
Probably true.
um, I just searched up some quick stuff real quick. Um, just further skeptical evaluation. So the Bell Witch story is an important one for all paranormal researchers. It shows how easily legend and myth can be mistaken for fact and real events, and easily the lines are blurred. When sources are not checked, Radford reminds readers that the burden of proof is not on skeptics to disprove anything, but rather for the proponents to prove.
Mm.
So, like we said, we have no evidence at all. No, well, not at all, but
We
um,
have some evidence.
there has been videos of people who just went to the cave and everything, um, and did stuff like that.
A
But we don't.
quick little, you know, thing, a quick little Google search. I looked up movies about the Bell Witch. There are 5 movies about the Bell Witch.
Seriously, 5?
There's An American Haunting, Bell Witch the movie, Bell Witch the Haunting, and
Hello.
and then if you use
I see. The Bell Witch haunting, an American haunting, Bell Witch, and obviously the Blair Witch Project,
yeah,
which is definitely in my top 10 horror movies.
yeah. It is really good. I
I mean, I
personally
love that
not
movie.
like the original as much as I liked the remake.
I like the remake a lot more, except for
And
at the
I
end,
normally don't like remakes of movies,
which
especially horror movies.
we might we might be covering the Blair Witch Project. Hint, hint.
Maybe.
Obviously after quarantine's over because social distancing, and we can't
Yeah,
go anywhere, or we could just watch it over the phone.
we've done that.
Yes, we have. Haunted house. I'm just looking through all my notes, making sure I didn't miss anything for you, lovely people.
Okay, so people still hear and see and experience so many weird things. There is some evidence, it's not as big as a lot of evidence is, like some orbs caught on camera or something
Oh,
flying across the room caught on camera. And those are just like things that are caught recently because, well, technology. And
yes.
so you can still visit the caves and you can go into the forest and you can stay at the cabin if you want more information or if you want to somehow, if you, for some reason, don't know what's going on in your mind, want to spend the night, $8 per person for each night. You can go to bellwitchcave.com.
Which I believe that's still the website, right?
And I'm going to
Yes,
make
it is.
sure
It
about
is.
it.
Yep, it's the Bell, not the
Yep,
Bell. It's
it's
bellwitchcave.com.
bellwitchcave.com.
They have a homepage where it tells you about the legend.
Yep.
Has well, the homepage is talking about an American haunting. The legend talks about the legend, the cave, obviously the cave, just photos. Um,
Yes, there is so many. It's kind of cool.
there are actually some pretty cool photos.
Yeah. Like there's like just like the legend, the yeah,
Tours and
the school
pricing.
building.
All right. So regular daytime tours, daytime cave and cabin tours are available from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. Last tour starts at 4 p.m. You can get cave tours for $12, cabin tours 8, cave and cabin combo 18. Um,
Yeah.
and the May in May they only do Saturday, Sunday. June, Labor Day, and open 4 days a week: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
It
And
may be
Labor Day,
different because of COVID. You might not be
yeah,
able to
yeah.
spend the night in the cabin right now.
Labor Day through October 1st, obvious because Halloween, and last 2 weekends of October, special dates and times. Uh, their
Keep in mind social
location.
distancing and wear a mask if you're going
It's
with
in
people.
it's in Adams, Tennessee. Um, I have an interesting little quote from Richard Williams Bell. He wrote this in his manuscript. Whether it was whether it was witchery, such as afflicted people in past centuries of the darker ages, whether some gifted fiend in hellish nature practicing sorcery for selfish enjoyment, or some more modern akin to that of mesmerism, or some hobgoblin native to the wilds of the country, or a disembodied soul shut out from heaven, or an evil spirit like those Paul drove out of the man into the swine, setting them mad, or a demon let loose from hell. I am unable to decide, nor has anyone yet divined its nature or cause for appearing, and I trust this description of the monster in all forms and shapes and of many tongues will lead experts who may come with a wiser generation to a correct conclusion and satisfactory explanation. So they were genuinely concerned about what the Bell Witch will do.
Yeah, I would probably be too.
Definitely, definitely.
Did we talk about Betsy Bell? How she died?
No, we didn't.
Okay, well, Betsy Bell died under a mysterious circumstance,
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
and the spirit, the witch, took full credit.
Yep. Mhm.
There was no reason for her death. People just said that it was the Bell Witch.
Yeah, which is pretty creepy because she was healthy. She lived to, I think she was 98 or something, right?
I don't remember which person, Betsy or
Betsy Bell death.
she was almost she was over 80 years old.
Okay. Yeah, so she was healthy. Um
Hmm?
which obviously
1896 to
age
1888.
yeah, age could have played something part of it,
Mhm.
but if she was that healthy then she should have been able to survive longer.
It did not say that it was just old age
Yeah.
because how she was a very cleanly person,
Yeah.
the time period especially. No.
All right.
Yeah.
I I think this is the end of this podcast, our first podcast that we will increase the um what's it called
Quality
quality of and like different stuff.
streaming services.
So our next podcast will should we tell them?
Sure.
It will be about the Zodiac Killer.
Unsolved mystery.
Yeah. Uh
She, they are.
Mysterious killer. across the United States who claimed over 100 civilians and cops and sent um wow, holy crap,
So a lot.
letters with zodiac signs to the police.
And that is how.
And yeah,
Oh, there's a lot of information on it, a lot of research that is
yeah,
going to be put into this.
yeah, it's gonna be a long episode. We have a ton to cover. This has been a 45-minute episode, which isn't that bad.
Yeah, we were thinking it was going to be like an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah. Also, we skipped through some parts just because looking
Yeah.
over them, they weren't as great.
Yeah, not as big as it needed to be, like.
But yeah, I think this is it.
Oh,
So we'll see you guys in our next episode. This has been Jake
Emily. Our
from
horror.
the Horror Academy. I will see you guys next time. Bye.